Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Call of Juarez. The Gunslinger, or Gunslinger I believe it's called, True West difficulty video walkthrough. This is chapter 10, and this is it 1:30 to Hell? I think it's a play on the 3:10 to Yuma, I believe. The Western film with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale in it. It's a pretty decent film if you've not checked it out, and you'll probably be in a Western mood if you've been playing this for as long as I was. And I like getting into those kind of moods, when you just, for no real reason, you just decide to do something very thematic. I, for instance, went on a Clint Eastwood binge, and I'm known for going on, certain actor binges and just watching their entire filmography to watch everything they've done. And it's, primarily a celebration of how much I like film and certain actors, and, I don't want to be able to critique everything they've done, but at the same time, it's kind of a journey into the unknown. And once you dispatch of all those guys there, if you come over to the rock, you're going to press on here and you're going to get some more dialogue. You might notice these moments in my walkthrough where it goes into the sepia-toned, brown, and then nothing happens and it slows down and it seems like dead space or dead air time. What is actually happening there, folks, is the narrative, the constant narrative of this game is happening during those specific moments, and because I've turned it off because I didn't like it, that's what's happening. It's literally the game accommodating for how much the narrative is a driving force on what you actually play. And it's an interesting framework for a story device, and I do like it. It just rubbed me the wrong way because I didn't feel the sincerity that a lot of the reviewers did. Because when I was reading the reviews, the first thing I looked for was people, saying that the voiceover kind of got a bit annoying, and nobody did. So, which, there is a subtle irony to me talking about voiceovers getting annoying when every video pretty much on my channel has me speaking over it. And that is a fact that some people adore. That is also a fact that other fellows hate. So it's that interesting moment of, who will watch The Watchmen. But this is a fun mission, this one, because it's kind of different. There's some verticality to it. You're going to be doing a lot of walking across beams. We're going to be chasing down dynamites and a lit fuse at one point, which is a bit different. There is going to be a lot of shooting, because this is a first-person shooter, and that just seems to be par for the course. But it's an interesting arena. It's an interesting change of pace, and we are coming up towards the final stages of the game. There's just a couple chapters left. None of them are too long. And it's that moment where you look back and, did you enjoy your trip so far? But this sequence here, as you can see, there's going to be a couple of armoured guys, a couple of shotgun guys, a couple of shield guys. They do throw up and mix up the enemies a little bit. It's not quite as much as I was expecting. And that's definitely one of the things against this kind of game. Aside from making it really contrived with, here's the shotgun guy, here's the Gatling gun guy, here's the guy with the sword. It can be difficult to give you a diverse, range of enemies to kill. Which is... Some games handle this better than others, because some games, I think, if the combat is right, or if the systems at play work good enough, you can alleviate it a lot. But there are some games that it doesn't make sense why they're that way. A good example for me is a game called Hotline Miami. Anybody who's on the PC scene will probably know of it, because it was a really, really awesome game, and it came out and it kind of made some ripples, and it's just been ported to PlayStation 3. It should have come to Xbox, but Microsoft are fucking stupid. I don't know what's happening there. And the enemies on that game are all the same, except for the different mechanical types. So you have these guys in white suits who are your standard dude that you will fight for 100% of the game, and then there are dogs, and then there are these huge black guys. And I think there's a cop model for when police are about, and these waiter guys. And there's a couple of unique targets that you kill, but aside from them, these standard enemies are all the same kind of white dudes, and in white shirts and white suits and stuff. And I really expected there to be different designs as you went through, some levels would be mobsters, some levels would be gangbangers. I thought it would be a little bit more diverse like that, but their approach is really different. It's literally, the visuals are the mechanics, so just one look at this enemy tells you immediately what it is, and because the game itself is more about this combination of systems working together, and because this single enemy generally comes in all sorts of different forms because he can carry almost any weapon on the game, he is always a threat and always subtly different, even though he looks identical. And it begs the question, doesn't it? Would you prefer more detailed, fewer enemies, or more enemies that perhaps don't have the depth of the more focused games? And I think we need both for gaming to progress, because you need to have, you know, peaks and valleys. You have to have a healthy contrast. You need competition. You know, you need somebody to be setting a single trend, and then people following that one, and then the people who will want to be contrarian, taking it their own way so that they can set their own trend for others to follow. And if you don't really know what I'm speaking about, a great example would be Devil May Cry 1. Devil May Cry 1 has some of the most detailed, interesting, and intelligent enemies that I've ever seen in a game, as design-wise. They're fantastic. They're really, really interesting, and the really strange part about them is you don't see some of them till they're harder difficulties, so it was a really bold move by Capcom and the design team behind the original Devil May Cry to isolate some of these fantastically designed enemies behind a difficulty curve, which a lot of gamers aren't up for difficulty. A lot of gamers are not playing for that. They don't mind when they get shit-stomped online by another human being, but when the game shit-stomps them, that's where they draw the line. It's this really strange thing. Like it's this concept unto itself, which I could analyse for hours, because isn't it strange how people can play games like Call of Duty, games, any competitive game online, and play badly in the eyes of, you know, perhaps a good player or a more experienced player, but still enjoy their time with the game. And it reinforces the mentality of everybody plays games for a different reason, and just because one person perceives that person to be bad, or to not be great, or to have done poorly, to that person, that might have been exactly what they wanted to do. And I find that fascinating, because unfortunately, I come from an era where everything was competitive. There was none of this blame shifting at my school. If you lost, you got the shit trophy saying you sucked a big dick, and if you won, you got all the glory and all the girls. And I think that mentality, especially through schooling, breeds winners. It breeds people with a healthy competitive edge, and people who like to win and like the contest of testing themselves. So I was all up in that, and I hate doing badly on games. Don't get me wrong, there are certain games where I can turn off my competitive edge and enjoy myself, like by being a team player or playing for different purposes, or just a game that I enjoy the insanity of or the craziness of it. And then there are other games which I literally can't, and if I'm having a tough time or a bad time, I'm not enjoying it, and I will turn it off. It's that simple. And it's that disconnect of where games stop being fun and start being something else. And you'll see a lot of people that analyse video games in general, they make the argument that it's not a sport, you know, games are not a sport, which I've always been heavily against, because the definitions for a sport I've always found to be quite contrived at best. Oh, by the way, on this sequence then, did you see that? I didn't even jump, and I still grabbed the side of this thing, so I don't think it's as terrifying and as, you know, precise as it looks like it needs to be, so you don't have to worry about chasing this. You should get it if you're quite confident in your ability to traverse. But some definitions of sports were told by old ignorant men. You know, old ignorant men that wanted to isolate things and segregate people so that certain folk couldn't do it and certain folk could. You know, only the better off, the people with money, the well-funded. A lot like tennis and cricket and a couple of other sports that, you know, are really sour on me because they're this fantastic physical thing, yet you never really stand a chance of becoming anything in those sports unless you come from a wealthy background. And there are rare cases where pure talent can override this, but for the most you stand such a better chance if you can afford it. And I've always found that extremely sad, and that's why those sports to me will never be something that I view as truly great, even though the people that do them are fantastic athletes. But one of the main proponents to the arguments about games not being a sport is that they're not physical, which is flat out wrong and retarded at the same time. Because how can you judge a sport based on its physicality? You know, if you're being mentally engaged, if you're competing against another person or another team, it doesn't matter what the fuck you're doing. That game quickly transcends into something sporting. And I just find it really sad that people like to like diminutize the value and kind of, you know, make it out to be something that it's not. And it stems from this appreciation and the media's swing on things where nobody seems to know what games are, and they believe them to be this thing for children that keeps them in the basements and turns them into gun-totting lunatics, which games have never been predominantly, and that's just completely missing the point and coming from a point of ignorance of someone who's probably never played a game. But thank you for watching anyhow, folks. I'll see you in part 2 where we take on the boss, and I will probably have some strategy to talk there, so less of a tangent and more of a on topic. So thanks for watching, and you take care now.